Monday Night Football is here, baby. We've got 3 best bets to go with 2 marquee primetime matchups, so you don't want to miss this video. Let's dive into it. What's up, guys? It's your boy Noble Living back with another DYF Bets video where I'm breaking down my favorite picks and plays today as we just try to get to the bag and make some money together. On Friday, we had a very dismal day. You hate to see it. 0-2 day on the channel. We did lose on NC State, team total over 27.5. We were so close to going into overtime, and then guess what happened? A blocked field goal and a penalty, which ended up leading to NC State being able to kick a game-winning field goal. You hate to see that because we definitely would have gotten over this total in overtime. Hate to see that. Then we also lose on the Astros money line. As Framber Valdez slowly making his way on the ban list. Every time I seem to bet on this guy, seems to suck it up, stink it up. I don't know what this guy got going on. You can see our year-to-date record right here. We're still crushing it, still over 500. Now we're trying to turn around this ship in September. We're going to finish off the month strong as we got one more week. So let's dive into these best bets. If you can, drop a big like on the video. I'd greatly appreciate it. And let's look at this first game. My first best bet of the day, I'm going to go look at that later night game between the Bengals and the Rams, and I'm going to go with the player prop in this one. I'm going to go with Buccaneers over 5.5 receptions, -135 odds. Anyone know who this receiver was before the season started? I mean, I didn't. I mean, we've got a 5th-round rookie coming out of BYU, and he's certainly making a name for himself so far in his rookie campaign. He has fit like a glove into this Rams offense, replacing an injured Cooper Kupp, and after 2 weeks of stellar performances, I really don't know why we can't expect the same today. He had 10 receptions for 119 yards to start the year against the Seahawks, and then last week he had 15 receptions for 147 yards against the Niners. And yes, I understand that the Bengals are going to be zoned in on him now. They understand that he's a primary target, but 25 receptions over 2 games, that's absolutely crazy. And to now think that today that we only need him to get 6 receptions, I think he can absolutely do that today. And the reason why is because of who's going to be throwing him the ball, and that's right, Matthew Stafford. One thing about Matthew Stafford, if you followed him throughout his career, is when he gets a favorite target, he absolutely locks in on that target, force feeds them the ball. They become his safety valve. They become his go-to option. We saw that in Detroit with Calvin Johnson. Then we also saw that in the Rams with Cooper Kupp. And now maybe Puka Nacua can be that new guy who fills in that spot. And I did some research on this, right? If you look at over the last 5 years, the guys who've led the league in receptions, guess what the list is? We've got Davante Adams, then we've got Stephon Diggs, then we've got Keenan Allen, we've got Tyreek Hill, we've got DeAndre Hopkins, then we've got Cooper Kupp. Those are the guys who've led the league in receptions over the last 5 years. So Cooper Kupp came in 6th. So you're probably like, well, no, what's so significant about that? But if you dive into the numbers in terms of the amount of receptions per games played, let's look at those numbers again. Davante Adams, 7.25 receptions per the game. Stephon Diggs, 6.48 receptions per game. Keenan Allen, 6.7 receptions per game. Tyreek Hill, 6.1 receptions per game. And then DeAndre Hopkins, 6.5 receptions per game. And guess what Cooper Kupp is? 6.95 receptions per game. So when you look at the numbers, not just in terms of total receptions over the last 5 years, but total receptions combined with the games played or receptions per game, Cooper Kupp now flies to 2nd on that list in the entire NFL. That just speaks to the type of volume. I mean, yeah, it speaks to the type of great receiver that Cooper Kupp is, but it also speaks to the volume and the trust that Matthew Stafford has in his relied options. And I think Puka is that new guy, especially for this year. When you take a look at this Rams receiving core, I mean, they've got a few options here and there, but they don't really have any standout wide receivers. They don't have any really standout number 1 guys. So because of that, Puka can really be that guy who fills in the slot. He can really be the guy who roams around the field, and you know that Sean McVay is really creative about getting his playmakers the ball, whether it's slants, whether it's screen passes, whether it's, jet sweeps, whatever. He gets really creative about getting his guys the ball, and I think Puka Nacua is one of those guys today who's going to be able to get active and involved inside this offense, and all we need is 6 receptions from him, which I don't think is really an impossible task. This Bengals defense, we have not seen a ton of them in terms of in the pass defense, but they're kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of pass defense this year, so it's not like they're spectacular, but it's not like they're bad either. But when you look at their numbers, they've also faced teams that are not really pass-heavy teams. They faced the Browns in Game 1, Ravens in Game 2. These are not 2 teams that are really known for being pass-first offenses. I mean, Lamar can pass the ball a little bit, yeah, so can DeAndre Hopkins, but both of those teams are not only divisional opponents, but they also try to establish the run as well. So because of that, I really think this is an opportunity for them to face their first real pass-dominant offense, and I don't know what that defense is going to do, but I do know that Matthew Stafford's going to sling that ball around, and he's going to throw it around in this offense, and I think that that there's an opportunity for us to get over this reception total. Another thing that I really like in this matchup is when you dive into the numbers a little deeper. When you look at the Rams in the first game against the Seahawks, they won that game 30-13, and Matthew Stafford still threw the ball 38 times in that matchup. So if this is one that you think remains close, right now the Rams are underdogs by about 2.5 points or so. So because of that, there's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a close game. You got to know that there's going to be a lot of passes thrown. You got to expect Nacua is going to be in the mix there. So give me Puka Nacua over 5.5 receptions as my first best bet of the day. I'm headed to the other Monday Night Football matchup, Eagles versus Buccaneers. Oh, we love the marquee primetime matchup. Jalen Hurts versus Baker Mayfield, the two Sooner alumni going after it in this matchup. And I think this is a matchup that is really set up for Jalen Hurts to succeed. There's been a lot of chatter going on in the media over the past few weeks about how the Eagles offense has been looking, how Jalen Hurts has been playing. He hasn't been doing the same type of stuff that we've seen from him over the past year or two. His turnovers are up. There's been a lot of chitter and chatter going on. They even talking about A.J. Brown and how that relationship, it might be, we saw y'all arguing on the sideline, like what's going on? Are you guys getting involved, or are you going to get more involved in the offense? So there's been a lot of media chatter going on. And you guys know if there's one player in the NFL who's going to take that personally, it's Jalen Hurts. And today is the perfect opportunity for him to show all the critics, for him to show all the media, for him to show all the, the Philly faithful, we believe in him, but we know what the other people are saying out there, right? And I think this is the perfect time for Jalen Hurts and this offense to come out early, fast, and make a statement. So because of that, I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts over 238.5 passing yards, minus 115 odds is my second best bet of the day. And I just think that this is a matchup where Jalen Hurts can succeed in the passing game, because we're getting a lot of value here, in all honesty. When you look at his numbers over the first two games of the year, game 1 against the Pats, he threw it for 170 yards. Game 2 against the Vikings, he threw it for 193 yards. So not really two spectacular numbers, and definitely didn't go over his total. But when you dive into the numbers, look at it. Game 1 against the Pats, the Eagles got up 16-0 because of turnovers, because of the defense making plays. So really was no need for him to throw the ball, and it was a rainy matchup in that game. Game 2 against the Vikings, they didn't need to throw the ball. Why? Because the Eagles were tearing it up on the ground last week to the tune of 48 carries and 259 yards rushing. Why would they need to pass the ball? And they still almost passed the ball for 200 yards, and they had 259 yards rushing on the ground. So there's no need for him to get involved in the pass game there. But this is the thing. This week is going to be completely different for that rush offense, because they're going against a Buccaneers defense who is absolutely elite on the front line, and they can absolutely stop the run. So far this season, they're 4th in the NFL in rush yards per game. We only have 2 games of sample size to go off of, but they've only given up 108 total rush yards through 2 games, so that's 54 rush yards per game. So that kind of lets you know how strong this rush defense is. And then when you also take a look at it, it's going to force the Eagles into throwing the ball, and testing this weak Buccaneers secondary is kind of weak. They're bottom 10 in pass yards per game. They're averaging over 250 passing yards given up per game. Kirk Cousins threw for 344 yards against them in game 1. He went over his player prop passing total easily. Justin Fields threw for 211 yards against them. That's not a ton of yards, but he also went over his passing prop as well in that game. And Justin Fields, come on, we've seen enough from this guy to really know that he can't throw on the NFL level. I don't know what he's got going on over there in Chicago, but he really can't throw the ball. And for the Buccaneers to give up 211 passing yards to him, what do you think Jalen Hurts is going to do with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert? What do you think he's going to do? Come on now, let's be honest. And I think this is a game where Jalen Hurts doesn't just not have the media against him, but this is a game, truthfully, that I've been hearing a lot of sharps and people saying that the Buccaneers might win this one outright. They're believing in Baker Mayfield. They're definitely believing him to cover that 5.5 point spread, or the 5 point spread. The spread's already dropped in this matchup. So I'm not a fan of that. I do not think that the Buccaneers will cover. I'm an Eagles fan, so I might be biased. Fly Eagles fly. But one thing I do know is Jalen Hurts is going to tear apart this pass defense, especially because of all the chitter chatter that's going on. A.J. Brown's going to get involved in this offense today. I guarantee it. And the Eagles are going to test this weak secondary for the Buccaneers. And even if this one stays close, I know the pass game is going to be heavily involved. So give me Jalen Hurts over 238.5 passing yards as my second best bet of the day. For my third and final best bet of the day, I'm staying inside this Buccaneers-Eagles game, and I'm going to go with the same exact analysis. And because I think the Eagles are going to be passing the ball a lot, because I know that the Buccaneers have a strong defensive line, I got to fade one of the Eagles running backs here, and I've got to go Kenny Gainwell under 34.5 rushing yards, minus 115 odds there. Now, I know you guys just heard my breakdown about this elite Bucs run defense, how many yards they're giving up per game, how stellar they they've been in terms of stopping the run and clogging up the line there. And I think that's going to be one of those things that is going to be a factor in today's game. And because of that, I don't know if the Eagles run the ball that much. But even if they do run the ball, after the spectacular performance that we saw from DeAndre Swift, now it's kind of clear that he's going to be the #1 running back in Philadelphia. I thought he should have been the #1 running back coming into the year, but I get it. Gainwell was more familiar with the offense. If you were tapped into my Twitter page or my Telegram group, make sure you click the link in the bio. DYF Bets is below, so make sure you join those pages. I put out a note before the beginning of the year. A lot of people were taking prize pick squares and putting together their year-long super goats or their 5-team, 6-leg parlays to take up the entire year, right? One of the legs I told people to take a look at was DeAndre Swift over 625 rushing yards for the season. I told people to look at that because he did not start the year on the top of the depth chart, but that was a really low total for an elite running back who was going to get in the mix in the offense. Well, guess what? After an injury to Gainwell in week 1, it only took 2 weeks for him to get in the mix. And like I mentioned earlier, he was absolutely tearing up the run game against the Vikings. He had 25 carries for 175 yards in that game. So that's more than enough to push you to the top of the depth chart, in my opinion. So because of that, I really think this is a game where Kenny Gainwell just doesn't get enough touches. He's going to be splitting carries with him, DeAndre Swift, and don't forget about Boston Scott and Rashard Penny, who are all going to be active in this game as well. I was listening to Nick Sirianni earlier this week, and that's the coach of the Eagles, and he said that DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell have been splitting reps with the first team, and Penny and Boston Scott have been splitting reps with the second team. So because of that, all these guys are going to be in the mix. I don't see how Kenny Gainwell is going to get enough touches here, splitting all these carries amongst 4 running backs and against an elite run defense on top of that. In game 1 of this year, Kenny Gainwell had 15 carries for 55 yards against the Patriots, but in all honesty, I mean, that's a decent line, but that was a wet game where a lot of the run was involved, and like I said, he was the #1 running back at the time. DeAndre Swift and Boston Scott only got 1 carry each in that matchup. I guarantee you that's not going to be the case today. If the Eagles tend to run the ball 30 times, which I don't think is going to happen, if they do, then I guarantee you the split's going to be about DeAndre Swift 15, Kenny Gainwell about 7, and the other running backs maybe around like 3 or 4 and getting in that mix there. So because of that, I really think just a volume play for me. I don't think that he's going to get enough touches. And then also, if you've been an Eagles fan like myself and you've been studying them over the last several years, Kenny Gainwell, he was a primary factor in this offense over the last several years, which he's still going to be a primary factor in this offense. But what was the role that he was playing when Miles Sanders was the #1 running back? He was the 3rd down running back. He was the short yardage running back. He was that guy that you used to put in the game in 2nd and 3rd down on like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2. Well, guess what? If that's the role that he's going to start playing again, so guess what? That means that he might get the touches, but his yardage is not really going to be there, only if he really breaks one for a long run, which I really don't see that happening in this matchup. So because of that, I really think that, you know, him playing that short yardage running back role is going to start coming back up again. Jalen Hurts is also somebody who can play that role. So is Boston Scott. These are all things I'm not a fan of. So I think Kenny Gainwell is a fade in this matchup just due to how strong the Bucs run defense is, how strong DeAndre Swift played last week, and I just don't think there's enough touches to go around with this stacked running back core that the Eagles have. So give me under 34.5 rushing yards under Kenny Gainwell as my 3rd and final best bet of the day. That's it for me today, my friends. 3 best bets, 3 winners that are headed your way on this Monday Night Football. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop a comment or shoot me a message inside the Telegram group, and I'd love to be able to help you out. Let's make some cheddar today. Let's make some money, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, guys? Fly, Eagles, fly. Dictate your fate, and let's have a day. See y'all later.